been one of those days today. I set off to the gym in the car, realised I didn't even have my glasses on. I can't actually see when I'm on the road if I'm not wearing my glasses. So, you know, how I managed to do that is beyond me. Anyway, that's a sort of insight into my mindset of the day and how things are going. I'm working on this. I made it or started it a couple of weeks ago when I did knitting needle art, where I was just like getting paint on knitting needles and whacking them. I suppose I will link the video and all that kind of thing. Yeah, but then I came back to it and started just adding to it, like sorting the sky out a bit more and trying to make it look a bit more like something while still being kind of loose. And I thought, right, well, I'll do a little bit more to it, but I feel like I want to do something finer. So what I'm going to do is I've got some hair, like actual human hair. This is where it gets a bit odd, isn't it? But it is a good tool for really fine lines. I'm not just going all Hannibal Lecter on you. It is quite handy for making fine lines. I've tried it before. So I've got one here, and I'm going to put some paint on this needle. And then I'm going to make some marks at the front to represent maybe, well, I don't know, try and get some shadow effect. Got to use all my strength now. There we go. That's the gym paying off for you, with or without glasses. So yeah, I'm going to make some marks and see if we can just make it look a little bit more interesting and delicate. I think this is how I did it last time. I think. Because I had to experiment with a few different ways to get like sort of a nice effect. All right, let's pick one up. Let's see what happens. And yeah, and I'm going to talk about, this is not working. I'm going to talk about, there we go, look, and then that gets it a bit heavier. It's a bit too heavy. I'm going to talk about critics. And in this case, specifically, oh, that's long, isn't it? Specifically related to The Guardian, an article I read in The Guardian. It's about the Royal Academy's summer show, which happens every year at the Royal Academy in London. And any artist can submit a piece, and then if it's chosen, it goes up in the exhibition and has to be for sale, and you get a mixture of everybody. Just anybody who's had a go and decided to put it in. You do get famous, in inverted commas, or not in inverted commas, like Tracy Emin and stuff like that. So you do get famous artists there, and apparently Harry Hill, the comedian, has done something this year as well, so that's quite interesting. And then, yeah, I read it, and it kind of slated it. I'm just going to put this down for a second and read it. But this is my experience with reading any newspaper review of critics, really. An art critic's written. It's always a bit, I don't know, it just feels a bit... I'll read the first paragraph and see what you think. This year's RA Summer Exhibition is less awful than usual. It's still full of some of the worst art you've ever seen. Way too many Michael Craig Martins and Bob and Roberta Smiths. Now, I don't know if they're actual artists or if they're just like some kind of like, they're just trying to say this is like a person just off the street or something. I mean, it's probably an artist. But its awfulness is definitely a bit less awful. I don't know. How do you feel about that? What is that saying to you? I mean, we're allowed to say things are not good and not bad and stuff like that, but is it, I was trying to think, like, what makes, like, this is the best painting in the world. How do you decide what, like, is something that's not kind of rubbish? And then it moans about, like, the vast swathe of landscapes. Well, this is a landscape, so is this, what's wrong with landscapes? But is it how it's curated and put together? But what does make a painting good? Like, it's difficult to say, isn't it? But I tend to go with the general theory that if you've created something, or if someone's put a show on or whatever, and if it's, you've made the effort to create it, And I don't think it's done like for profiteering, is it, particularly? Or maybe at all. So, like, I tend to give things the benefit of the doubt. Say less awful than usual. And it does make me think about critics. When I was at school, I suppose the first place that I encountered the idea of being a critic, this has left lumpier marks on than I kind of wanted. I think I need to moisten the paint. The first place that I encountered critics was in music, really. When you were into your bands, and I used to play the guitar, and well, I still do if I've got time. I really don't. So I wanted to be part of it and create some music and make music. But there was a subset of people who were the critics, who were like, had no intention of learning an instrument or joining a band or creating the art, and saw it as their role to comment upon it and just basically say, is this good or bad? And in one more sort of like elongated way or another. And that's what they'd do. They'd sit there and they'd say, yes, I heard this band and I like this aspect of it, and 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 they'd write articles for school newspapers and maybe like at university, like in the students' union and things like that. And that's kind of how they saw themselves fitting into the world. And it's strange because I don't really generally get annoyed by things, but for some reason that irks me a bit. I don't know why. And that's probably a reflection on me. But what are they trying to achieve? And like most articles that you read like this are kind of negative, and if you occasionally get positive ones, I suppose, but it's interesting. And many of these sort of famous artists throughout history were sort of like, had the critics basically saying they were terrible and everything, which in the longer term sort of helped them out, really. And I don't know, I mean, Ruskin, I think, was a critic, wasn't he? And he sort of championed artists as well. So there is that aspect to it of maybe championing a certain artist and bringing them into the limelight. And I guess that's what they were doing, wasn't it? Sort of taking art and moving it into the media, and so people could see it, and then putting their spin on it. And I suppose in many ways writing and commentary is an art form in itself, so that was kind of their art form, I guess. But in a way that's kind of gone now, hasn't it? I mean, I can just literally show you my art and then you can think what you want about it. It doesn't really need somebody in between to do that anymore, so that's quite interesting. But I couldn't help, I mean, that's just the thing that I noticed this week, really, that was art related. And in the melee of trying to run a life and make an art YouTube video, that's what came to mind. So, like, let me know what you think. What do you think about critics? Do you like to read the articles? Do you like, I mean, we all like to moan about stuff, don't we? To a degree, I think. I mean, I'm moaning about the critics, and ultimately I'm going to take my own standpoint back again and be like, you know what, I'm not going to say that there's no place for them or anything like that, or I don't like them or something like that. But it is interesting that out of many, many things, the role of a critic in creativity and art makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. I don't know, it's interesting. I will think some more about it. And if you ever have done that, like felt the urge to like, you know, write articles and things maybe when you were at school, and then sort of say, oh, this band was great and for this reason, or not, I don't know. Let me know what it's about. I suppose it's just a bit alien to me and my mindset. Right, let's get some more coffee, and I should try and make this work a bit better. Right, so a slight change of tack, I think. Put some water in here. I'm going to use a brush instead, and then pull the hair off the brush, and then I should be able to get some thinner paint, and then that should be a bit more, well, make less lumps, I suppose, in its most basic language that I can muscle together in an unscripted video. Alright, there we go. So I need the hair again. And I suppose I should bring the camera around so you can actually see what's going off. Right, let's put those over there. Let's bring it over. I think that's probably a good length. I don't want one too long actually. Right, so look, it needs to sort of, maybe if I just pull it through here. Guess that's working. So I quite like this painting, and I'm hoping that I can improve it further in my own mind at least, and that's half the battle, I think, in that I get so far with the painting and then I think I kind of wrecked it. Well, in many senses before it wasn't like done. I wasn't happy with it, and then I'm even more unhappy with it the more I do. So there are occasions where I like it and then try to add to it and then make it worse as well. So I'm hoping that's not going to be one of these occasions. And I'm trying to bring a bit of shadow into the sort of foreground here of these. I suppose this is a grassy area, or some reeds or something, some kind of vegetation anyway. I do feel like I can probably bring out a bit as well up here, where try and break this blue up a bit. I don't know, I may add some more with some other fine things, but for now I'm just going to put the hair in. And I have to say, my sort of art life is very chaotic at the minute. I'd call it like a messy bedroom. Like, I've got my website, which is kind of out of control and needs updating. I've got a massive pile of sort of unfinished art and even unstarted art and ideas, all sort of piled up on top of my art box. And I really feel like I'm fighting to continue this and not just, you know, stop. It's hard to keep going, and especially when you're not seeing any real success or anything. And I enjoy the painting, I do. And I did some the other day without filming it, and that was nice. But there's so many other things that you feel like you probably should be doing instead, that it takes a back seat, and it's hard to give yourself permission. I think this is a relatively modern thing, and partially about becoming older as well. It's hard to give yourself permission to do these kinds of things and relax without thinking about what is the outcome, whether that be some social media or a way of making money, or, you know, everything seems to have to be productive, and there doesn't seem to be much room for just doing things for the sake of doing them. Much like reading a book, I really don't like read books anymore, because it seems like a slow and unproductive way of consuming media, and everything seems to be in a bit of a rush. I do remember being younger, and there was nothing wrong with sitting around all Sunday afternoon and doing absolutely nothing. You know, read a book, sketch a flower from the garden, even just watch TV. Everything seems a lot more scheduled at the moment in my life. Right, that's not too bad. Bit of yellow, maybe see how that looks. I think this is close to a finished painting. I kind of want to stick it on aluminium, a slightly bigger piece of aluminium sheet, and then just sort of stick it to it. I think that would be quite a interesting way of displaying it. Also seems like I have to buy some aluminium. I feel like I should blur out the base a bit with my finger. Quite a nice effect. Let's see what happens if we sort of walk it along here. Quite nice as well. The more that you practice this, the more you do get actual control. Could be quite a nice way to paint. Especially like that one where you're just sort of adding more paint each time and letting it fall. So I've been painting for about half an hour. It's going kind of well. Some of the marks are a little bigger than I'd like. So I've kind of dried it off with a hairdryer, and I'm hoping and just scratch it off with the blade. I need to actually clean the blade before I do that. Okay, so let's see what happens. Yeah, it's pretty dry. So I need to scratch away at it, kind of break it down, but without damaging the card underneath. There we go. I think, is that an improvement? I think it is. Try and get this one. That one came straight off. Probably could have just used my fingernail. I think the last thing is maybe just to put some burnt umber. I'm kind of going to just glaze over it, I think, to try and get rid of the really bright yellow aspect of it. Just dull it down a bit, I guess, in places. Kind of just like a wash. And it might well be that then it is close to completion. That's too much now. A bit more. Just down here. See if we can get a shot of it. Yeah, so that's the progress today. It's not too bad. It's going really close like that, and then see where it tracks into. So I think that might be nearly finished. I do think I'd quite like to mount it on aluminium. I'll have a look at that. It might be a bit pricey. We'll see. And let me know what you think about critics and all that jazz. Was I talking nonsense? I'm just trying to come up on the fly with something to talk about, I guess, while doing a bit of painting. So I'm not too upset if you think I'm being silly. And that's it. I guess I'll see you next week again. Who knows where I'll be and what I'll be doing. I've been struggling to find the enthusiasm to do my art history research, and it all comes down to just being very busy and I suppose, the arduous nature of continuing to run the channel, but I am going to keep doing it one way, and it'll just change and be something, and it'll continue to evolve, and maybe wither away, but and die. But hopefully not, eh? Hopefully not. I can pick up some paint and clean everything up now. Jobs to do. I'll see you next time. Bye.